Call the meeting to order. It's Monday, January 10th, and this is the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Stand and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have you had the opportunity to call the roll?
I have taken roll. Everybody's present. You do have.
Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the minutes from the December 13th meeting. Do we have any commission discussion?
Move for approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is old business, 4A Kearney Crossing rezoning to RP3, RP4, and CP with concept plan preliminary plat. And this is an item that was tabled from our last meeting. David, do you have anything?
Yeah, I've got some staff comments. I don't want to go through the entire project like we did last time, just basically to highlight maybe the changes in the plan that you see. First, I think I would like to maybe share screen and pull up that plan sheet, so we can have that on the screen and then for the audience. So I'm going to pick one of the plans here, or that one here. Go hit share screen. I should be able to zoom in on areas, but PC Homes, represented by Brian Mertz and Patricia Jensen, proposed to rezone approximately 32 acres located at Bennett Boulevard and 92 Highway to CP Commercial Plan District, RP3, Medium Density Residential Plan District, and RP4, High Density Plan Residential Plan District for the Kearney Crossing project. It's the name of the project. Includes 5 commercial building sites, self-storage facility, a 216-unit apartment complex, which is a reduction from the previous plan that showed 240 units last month, and then 96 townhome dwelling units. They're in 4-plex buildings, 24 4-plex buildings, same number as the last time. The updated plan includes the following changes. Setbacks to the self-storage facility, that is up along the east side of Bennett Boulevard here, were increased to 30 feet to meet standard zoning requirements. They originally had some setbacks shown at 25 feet. Setbacks along the north property line, adjacent to Innovation, and the west property line, adjacent to some businesses and some properties along Sandbar Drive, were increased to 35 feet to meet the standard landscape buffer width. The front and rear setbacks for the townhomes was increased to meet standard zoning, a 30-foot front yard and a 25-foot rear yard. There were some front setbacks for the apartment complex along this proposed interior road along Bennett Boulevard that were shorter than 30 foot. Those have been increased to 30 feet. And then parking in the apartment complex was increased to 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, which is minimum code requirements. Plan still proposes a reduction in the landscape buffer width. Kind of hard with this giant hand, but down where their proposed commercial abuts the townhomes, that would be, the old plan proposed a 20-foot rather than 35-foot wide. This plan continues with that 20-foot request. Proposed landscaping at the time of site plan, we would anticipate would be the same landscaping that would be required. It's just a narrower area for the plantings. And then they also request to continue with the proposed increase in overall building height for the apartments of 42 feet, which is a 2-foot increase from standard. The updated plan also proposes some road improvements. Try and zoom in a little bit at Bennett Boulevard. So there would be a widening to accommodate 3, I'm going to say, southbound lanes and 1 entrance lane, and then also a westbound right turn lane into westbound 92 Highway right turn lane onto Bennett Boulevard. Previous plan
that not already exist?
It does not already exist. Yeah, we have, currently 92 Highway westbound has 2 through lanes and a left turn lane, so this would be an added right turn lane. Their original plan had a proposed right turn entrance only on the west side of Bennett Boulevard. That remains in their plan. So they've added widening at the intersection and then a right turn lane onto Bennett Boulevard. MoDOT has commented that they would like to propose some signal timing modifications and some striping changes over time as the traffic changes. They think they can maybe do some timing things there that might help the situation initially, but then as traffic increases, then maybe we do move to, as the plan shows, a dual out left turn lane, and then there'd be a through and right turn lane to go westbound or go straight south onto North Country Avenue. This property is inside the CID, the West Side Community Improvement District. Right now, there's a sales tax that's generated by Pilot and Econolodge and Arby's that puts together funds that then paid for the Bennett Boulevard construction. It's anticipated there's some additional funding, $1.2 million possibly over the course of that CID that could be available for additional road improvements. The applicants are proposing to a request for those funds that will go to the CID board and considered by that board. I want to point that out to you today. That's not necessarily a P&Z item, but we want to let you know where this property is in a CID, and the intent of the CID is to do roadway improvements in the district. The sanitary sewer layout was updated. In the previous plan, the entire site drained to the southeast. We have an 8-inch sewer main that runs east and west along 92 Highway. We had some concerns about the whole site draining into that sewer main. We knew that there was a sewer main at the north property line that then goes north in through Innovation and hits a sewer main that then continues east and then south past Quick Trip and past Price Chopper down to the sewer plant. They did update their plan to utilize that north sewer main, so the commercial lot at the southwest corner of the property, 19 of the townhome buildings and all of the apartments are routed to that north sewer line. The remaining commercial lots and then 5 of the townhomes would then continue to drain to the southeast. They did submit a sanitary sewer capacity analysis reviewed by our city engineer. Our engineer had a few comments. It sent back to their engineer. They resubmitted. We got that late last night. Our engineer is still reviewing that. It does show that 8-inch line has the capacity to take what is proposed to go that direction. The key thing that we looked at was making sure that we don't run that whole site through that 8-inch line and they utilize that line to the north. It leads to a bigger line that has more capacity. As far as water, they show a water connection along 92 Highway. I think they also identify maybe replacement of a water main along 92 Highway. Without getting further into engineering, when we go through platting process and go through engineering plans, there might be a need for some other improvements there to ensure that they have the water capacity, the flow and the fire suppression, fire hydrants and things like that. So that will be looked at a little bit further. Staff had requested that they make some interconnections to some existing lines to the west or to the north or to the east. Doesn't show up right now on their plan, but that's something that we'd like looked at and considered when they get further into the engineering. Staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning with concept plan and preliminary plat, including the following conditions. All the conditions remain the same from last month, other than condition 1, where there was a longer list of maybe variations from the standard zoning request, and so we narrowed that back down to just the overall height of 42 feet from 40, and then reduction of that landscape buffer between their proposed commercial and the back of the townhomes at the south end of the RP3 area. So conditions that staff recommends our proposed P district plan includes the following: rezoning concept plan as proposed, CP, commercial plan district area, reduced landscape buffer width from 35 to 20 feet along the adjacent RP3 townhome boundary west of Bennett Boulevard, so it's their southern townhomes. In the RP4 area, increased maximum building height from 40 to 42 feet for the apartments. 2, additional revisions recommended by the P&Z if necessary. 3, MoDOT and city traffic engineer review and approval. 4, provide adequate stormwater detention per city engineer review. Their plan does show detention. There's just, when we get into the platting and the engineering, there'll be some, they'll have to do calculations and things like that for the size of the facility. 5, provide adequate water service and fire flow per city engineer review. 6, provide adequate sanitary sewer service, including submittal of a sanitary sewer capacity analysis and utilization of the sanitary sewer at the north property line. 7, submit a copy of the Corps of Engineers review and approval. 8, install a key box if required by the Fire and Rescue Protection District. 9, submit final plats and/or commercial site plans for review and approval prior to public improvements and commercial building construction. 10, submit building permit applications prior to construction. 11, submit sign permit applications prior to sign installation. 12, develop the project in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, and plans, and payment of fees and taxes. And then this application will be considered by the Board of Aldermen at their meeting next Tuesday night. Next Monday is a holiday, so that meeting has been bumped to Tuesday. Patricia Jensen, I think, would maybe like to address the board. There's a PowerPoint presentation they have, and you have some extra exhibits that they've provided for you. Thanks. Yeah, give me a second. All right. If I can find what I'm looking for on full screen. There we go. And I'll advance when you let me.
Okay. Good evening, Chairwoman and members of the Commission. As you know, my name is Patricia Jensen with the Rouse Fretz Law Firm, with offices located at 4510 Bellevue. Here today on behalf of PC Homes, and with me as a representative of PC Homes is Mr. Brian Mertz. He will address and talk about the traffic improvements that we've discussed over the past month since you continued this item. Also present in the audience with us is Janelle Clayton. She is our traffic engineer, so she's present. And then we have Brian Kemp, who is on remotely. I think he needed to stay at his home because one member of his family had a COVID exposure. Before I start into our presentation, clearly, David has given you a good summary of the changes we've made since our hearing last month. We appreciate the continuance for a month because I think we've answered a lot of your questions or concerns that arose during that hearing. And also, we agree with all of the conditions that David has stated for approval. So with that, David, if you would advance to the next slide. Again, we request your approval to rezone the property from general commercial and industrial to CP, RP3, and RP4, and approve the site plan for the development of the 32 acres. And as you see, we've reduced the multifamily units down to 216, and I've got another slide that will clearly show you some of the differences. And then approve a preliminary plat for 7 lots in 2 tracts. Next slide. This is a chart showing you the changes to the development plan compared to the original plans that we submitted in November and that you reviewed in December, and our revised plans that we submitted to David this month. As you can see, our apartment units changed from 240 to 216. The landscape buffer, we've got 35 feet everywhere except for that one area of 20 feet along the north side of the commercial adjacent to our townhomes. Our front yard setback, we had previously requested a reduction in. We've revised the plans to come into compliance. Same with the setbacks for the self-storage. the rear yard setbacks, the front yard setbacks. We clearly heard, your concern about all of the revisions we had asked back in December. As David noted, we maintain the increase in building height to 42 feet. That's about a 5% deviation request. But we maintain the front yard setbacks in the R4P, along Bennett, and the parking we've increased so that we meet your code requirements. Those highlighted items that are in yellow are the only two variances requested under the revised plan. We've made significant changes to the Bennett and 92 highway intersection, and we'll discuss those later in our plan. I think that will resolve a lot of the concerns that we heard back in December. Next slide. This shows you the site plan revisions that we made from the original plans to the revised plans, and as you can see, we've revised up in the corner where it's shaded in blue, we've revised the layout of the apartment buildings and lost one of the apartment buildings in the revisions that we made. Slide. Again, this is an aerial of 92 and Bennett Boulevard, although I think most of you are all of you are very aware of what exists out there. So I'm going to go through the criteria for the zoning amendment review criteria, which you heard previously. This is taken from your code, and we'll go through those one by one. Next slide. The first criteria is the existing uses of the subject property and uses of adjacent and near properties. This property is undeveloped, has been undeveloped, and has never really been developed. Around us, we've got a mix of uses that deal with restaurant, retail, automotive uses. We have office uses. We have very, very light industrial uses. They're not your typical heavy industrial type uses. It's mainly warehousing and distribution, and automotive along with that. And then on the north side of us, we've got the single family residential development that has been developed in Kearney. Next slide. The second criteria is the current zoning of the subject property and adjacent or nearby properties, and as everybody's outlined, it is commercial and industrial for the zoning districts, but there is RP2 and there is single-family residential to the north of that industrially zoned area. One of the criteria in your code, it doesn't define how you calculate it, but it says the extent to which property values are diminished by the present zoning restrictions. And you'll see outlined in yellow a total value of the current assessed values of the property. And then you can see we've taken comparable residential assessed values of the land and comparable commercial. And at the bottom, we talk about what we believe that the assessed value of this property will be post-development. And you can see that our total increase in the market value is about $2.7 million. Next slide. The extent to which the restrictions diminishing property values promote health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the public. Our proposed zoning or plan approval for the commercial development is consistent with the existing zoning, and there are no restrictions on this portion of the project that impact the public welfare. The restrictions on the industrial zoned portion of the property diminish the general welfare of the property, of the public, because the property has not developed under its current zoning. Well, much of the property around it has developed. The traffic issues at 92 Highway and Bennett will remain unresolved until a suitable development proposal for this property is approved. And it's been 15 years, as highlighted in your staff report, since a non-senior living multifamily product has been built in Kearney. Next slide. Number 5 says the relative gain to the public compared to the extent of the hardship imposed upon the individual property owner. The public doesn't gain by preserving existing industrial zoning when there hasn't been a market for this product in over 2 decades. And the immediate need, as we all know, is multifamily in Kearney. We've taken the portion of the staff report that talks about it's been nearly 15 years since Porter Ridge Apartments expanded, and nearly 17 years since the most recent fourplex was built. Next slide. The suitability of the subject property to the proposed zoning classification. And again, this is a chart that's highlighted what you saw in the previous plan compared to what is in this revised plan. And again, emphasizes that we are only asking for 2 modifications, 2 variances to that. Number 7 says the history of the use of the subject property considered in the context of development in the vicinity of the property. Again, you see our slide highlighting what exists around us, and you also see a highlight, and it's on the right side of the screen, that shows that the single-family area has been developed and it abuts the industrial uses that are in purple. These are the existing single-family homes built at Sandbar Drive and West 7th. Right. Number 8, which you heard a lot about last month, was the conformity with the Kearney comprehensive plan. But what's important is that also the provision of that code also says or other planning documents. So we're going to highlight a little bit more of what the comprehensive plan says, and then we're going to talk about other planning documents that have been done on this site. Slide. This is an update that was done after the 1996 master plan, which called for big box retail and residential at this site. Right. And then if you look at the plan itself, it really talks about we pulled out of certain paragraphs in that plan and highlighted certain provisions of that plan. So the policy LU4 talks about the Highway 92 commercial corridor, and it talks about the opportunity to transform the area in strategic locations over time. We believe that this is a good opportunity to transform this site. And it talks about the guide being a flexible guide, as I talked about last month. It states this plan is intended to be a dynamic planning document for Kearney, one that responds to changing needs and conditions. And then as you evaluate cases in front of you, one of the questions is, will the proposed development or action maintain neighborhood identity and character while increasing the variety of housing options for residents? And we believe that Kearney Crossings provides other options for residents of Kearney for housing. The 9th criteria, if you flip that, David, talks about the capacity to provide adequate public services, facilities, and utilities to accommodate the proposed development. We believe that we provided all the studies and the documents, and we'll continue discussing with them with staff as we seek to do the final plat and final plans on the property, that we've got adequate stormwater, the streets we'll talk about, the streets and the traffic study we'll talk about, the sidewalks, the water, and the sanitary sewer. And then the next item is number 10, which states the extent to which appropriate transportation design and access is provided given existing and planned roadway capacity. We've had a number of meetings since your last meeting, both with city staff and with, the MoDOT representatives. And to that extent, Brian Mertz is gonna talk about those, and then we can finalize our presentation.
Wasn't sure Patricia was gonna let me talk. I gotta say something. I wanted to pass around just I've got a couple printouts, so I can pass them around.
They have them.
Oh, you already have the
Yes.
large sheet? It's more of a detail of what we're gonna talk about at this intersection of 92 and Bennett. Back in December, that was one of the points, that was really hammered home by the commission. And so, as Patricia said, we spent a lot of time with MoDOT, discussing that. We've seen the pictures of stacking up the trucks and things like that. One of the interesting things that came out of our discussions with MoDOT after our December meeting was that if you look at the timing on that light, as Janelle Clayton, with her discussions, you know, it's set up for a 45-second window to allow trucks to get off limits on 92. And when you watch the actual video, it's only going for 30 seconds. So that's one thing that MoDOT's gonna look at, is adjusting the timing. I think that's something Mr. There's a flaw in the system somewhere. So that's gonna be addressed. This is an email from January 5th from MoDOT. Highlighted area that kind of says, MoDOT's comfortable with following items, design, and the team can move forward with the city planning process. So that was on January 5th. January 6th, the city engineers and MoDOT have a meeting. Dave, would you mind going to the next slide? This was the outcome of that meeting. Look at your, well, I'm gonna skip this slide and come back to this. Dave, if you would time go to that next slide. Okay. So here's the summary of options that MoDOT and city staff, city engineers discussed. So there's two options. Our first option is a single southbound left turn lane. Currently, you've got a through lane, and that's kind of in the light gray. You've got a left turn lane off Bennett on the 92, and then you have a northbound lane on the Bennett. So with our changes, you've got a right turn lane off 92 now, that's the bottom right. We extend that lane when you turn onto Bennett, that's the single left turn lane, all the way up to where our commercial entrance on the Bennett is. So right now, Bennett coming from the north is 2-lane, broadens to 3 lanes. We're taking it the full width all the way up to our commercials, and that's 360 feet. So that allows for enough stacking, even with one turn lane, which is a requirement of 340 feet with proper signaling, passed through the traffic study. But we heard you loud and clear and said that's not good enough. So we went back to MoDOT and we said that's not good enough. We're going to need to do better. So that's where the proposed lane widening up at the north, that's where that's taking place. We're doing a dedicated right turn lane out of our development onto Bennett, so people can move freely if they were going westbound 92. Then we have a dedicated through lane, go south through the intersection. And then another part of the development is the right turn lane to the west there that comes into our commercial. So again, getting people off 92 going westbound into our development quicker so there's not a traffic jam. So this is option one. David, would you mind going option two? So MoDOT said, okay, well, if the traffic does come, like everybody in the city has expressed to us, and more development happens to our north, in addition to our development, because we didn't want to just fix it as a temporary Band-Aid for our development. So with this handles more development that goes northwest, whether that's Mr. Robertson's ground or whoever up there, we will be able to handle it on this intersection. So And just through a matter of striping, because we're gonna do all the upfront work and put the lanes in. This is 2 lanes turning south off Bennett onto eastbound 92. And you can kind of see where that is now, double left turn lanes. We keep the right turn only, everything else is, remain the same, except for adding both of these lanes turning at the same time. Really getting the traffic off Bennett on 92, and more likely on the 35. So would you mind going back 2 slides to that? That's what's summarized here. I know that you know, on January 7th after discussion with city engineers. So what we did in the subsequent ones was just kind of put it in. You can kind of see where MoDOT's in red. They've offered, you know, let's try option 1.
Traffic.
The infrastructure will be there.
Can't make that turn now.
Sorry? Your question?
No.
Oh. And so some of this is with additional asphalt, a lot of additional asphalt, changing the mast arms, increased striping. We get to number 10, which is a big one, and that's the traffic. Would you mind moving a couple more? We'll get to number 11. Keep on. And the last final criteria on the zoning amendment is the extent to which the rezoning will not result in adverse impacts on the natural environment, including air, water, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, and vegetation. Or such impacts will be substantially mitigated. We think that doing the residential and commercial is a lot softer on the environment than an industrial format. And we have submitted already to Missouri DNR our application for a 404 in this criteria. We've done a study with Habitat Architects. We've identified the tributaries to the wetland. We're not touching the wetland areas. So we think we satisfy number 11. Even if it's the next. And this is our elevations from the previous meeting that we went through. The apartments. Photos of the existing townhomes that we plan on building here. At the end of the day, we request approval of this. Are available for any questions.
Thank you. We will open up commission discussion.
David, as the board knows, that I was really opposed to the setbacks. Now, if I'm reading this right, just help me understand this. The only setback that is the one there along the buffer.
So, yeah, if you look at the north side, well, if you're west of Bennett Boulevard, they have the commercial pad sites. There are 2 of them that they're the north side of their parking lot abuts the townhomes to the north, just to the north of them. So the very south end of the townhomes, there would be a 20-foot buffer between that drive aisle, I'll call it the drive aisle, and their property line, which they'll have a fence on that, along that property line.
Okay, I would think I was referring down here where the businesses will be down through here.
Yes, yes. Would it help, can you, Chuck, if you don't mind looking up on the screen there?
Yeah, that's where I'm talking about. The
Yeah,
buffer
yeah,
through there.
right here, yes, right.
That's what
right
I'm
here.
concerned with.
Right. The landscape buffer along this west property line and along the north property line are 35 feet, which is the minimum that we call out in landscape ordinance.
And the one down there at the bottom on the south end.
Yeah, that's where they're proposing to reduce from 35 to 20 feet in this area here.
So all the other setbacks were taken care of other than that
Right.
buffer right there?
Right.
Okay. And then the only other thing was the height. 40 to 42 foot.
Correct.
Okay. And then I had a question on the street on Bennett Boulevard. Was that widening going all the way back past their, parking lot and apartment number 9?
It would,
Or is it stopping there?
let me,
at that
yeah, stop
street,
at that first.
Residential access street there?
Correct. Yeah, can you see in your plan, do they have it shaded? A little bit of shading?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that that right lane continues north to the residential access drive. Doesn't continue further north.
Okay, so the only more access it's gonna put on Bennett Boulevard will be everything from apartment number 9. Is that right? Well, we're not widening the street all the way through?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the widening is from, they call it private drive and residential access. So where the townhomes, the south side, they have 2 streets that go east-west and connect to Bennett,
Yeah.
Southern Street. So the widening would continue up to that Southern Street.
That second access to it.
No, first one.
Just the first one?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
The townhome.
I like that. That's why I was asking. And that was the only questions I had.
Mhm.
Where's the access to the property that's north and to the east, the one that's behind the, truck stop now? Where will,
If we can go, let me go to Google Earth. I didn't mean to turn. Bennett Boulevard,
right,
Shanks Avenue.
yeah,
The subject property is this tree line, lead to Shanks Avenue. Directly north of the subject property is Innovation Business Park. So this street gets extended. This street will get extended and stub out to that east property line, which is this north-south tree line. This trapezoidal property is Jim Robertson's property,
Right.
so Bennett Boulevard would continue into that property somehow. And then at some future time, Bennett will extend further north to 33 Highway, but right now, Fun Farm is on that, property right now, and
right.
we don't know how long they'll be there. Pretty successful, they've been there a while. This Innovation Road will, it stubs to the east, it will continue, and we'll have an intersection, so there'll be another, some additional interconnectivity in the future too.
So you're saying someday there'll be an access from there, be another sort of inroad to that area?
Right. Yeah, as part of the innovation plan, they had, their development plan showed 2 stubs, this street stubs, and this street stubs, but they're required to have at least one of them connect to the east. Both may, one must. And, in Innovation 4th plat, which the board reviewed probably within the last year, this southern area will be subdivided into 8 lots, and the street continues all the way to the east property line. It won't end in a cul-de-sac on the property.
Is there a plan for any sort of outer road running parallel to the interstate?
Well, Bennett Boulevard will continue north and
It'll-
connect to 33.
Okay,
Yeah, we just don't know the timeline for that
right,
because it
okay.
depends on how development happens and when.
Having a little trouble understanding the difference between the 2 number 10s. We've got First one is option one. A single left turn lane. It should show 4 lanes.
Commissioner Parks, can I help walk through that?
Yeah, please.
I'll zoom in on this area, Mick.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, I'm sorry if I was confusing when I went through that.
No, you weren't confusing, I just wasn't understanding.
So option one is there's one southbound left turn lane. That's currently what's there at Bennett right now. But it has a short kind of stacking, and that's where,
That's option 2 up there.
well, so that still exists, but we're gonna stretch the stacking all the way up to our residential and private road access. But right now, there's not much stacking on Bennett. So we're gonna take it all the way up 360 feet. That's with one southbound left turn lane. Then we have one southbound through lane. So currently on Bennett, there is a through lane. So that lane would remain. And then we add the one southbound right turn lane. So that's a new addition. That's in that dark gray on the left-hand side. And then all 3 lanes, that's what he's saying, is all 3 lanes will extend to the full back, all the way up to the commercial entrance. That currently is not the case right now. We're gonna take all of that full width of that entire intersection, all the way up to our residential and private road.
The first intersection.
That's 360 feet. That currently doesn't exist right now, and that's where a lot of that backup is happening, blocking Bennett when the people try to come south. If they were wanting to go south right now, in the morning, they couldn't, because the trucks are blocked.
Right.
So by adding additional queue space, that allows, if you were only looking at option one and only one southbound left turn lane, fits what's happening right now. So option 2 is turn both of those lanes southbound into a left turn onto 92. So now you have 2 lanes turning onto 92. Then taking one shared lane and making it a right turn or shared through
So it's the shared through then.
on the second option.
Yeah, I think that's where I was fuzzy.
And then again, all the lanes going all the way up. Regardless, all the work gets done on day 1 of the expansion. Then it's a matter of, need, as far as striping at a left turn or left turn only, or through and a right turn and
Okay.
all that.
Yeah, thank you. Do you anticipate not needing parking for the pool and clubhouse area?
So we have the, 432 spaces already within the apartment
Right.
development. We think we're overparked. Anybody that's using that is a resident. So it's not like you're gonna drive, I don't know, David, if you can roll it to me.
Yep.
It's really, you're not increasing your, I mean, the farthest walk you have is maybe 100 feet. I mean, so parking to leave your unit and drive around closer to that doesn't really improve your, because you are dealing with just the residents here.
Is the clubhouse going to be a rental clubhouse where a resident can rent it? Say, let's have a
Yeah, the
New
way
Year's Eve
the
party.
way we do it for the residents is to have like a birthday party, or if you want to have your kid's sports team over to use the pool. Only the residents can use the pool and clubhouse area. So they'll put down a deposit.
Right.
We don't upcharge them. It's not a profit center for the development. It's a amenity. So it has a fitness center. It's got a leasing office in there. It's got a club room.
Am I seeing for 216 apartments that we've only got 2 trash enclosures?
That could be the case.
It seems light.
And I agree with you. That's a question for our engineer. I think a lot of this gets vetted out when we come in from the city as well, for our building permit. And in something like this, I'd like to see 4 myself.
Brian, this is Brian Kemp. Would you care for a response on that particular item, or are you guys okay just letting it ride?
Engineer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of these developments in cities we deal with, some prefer more trash enclosures, some prefer less. We go with the less route initially, with the understanding that you can contract with the trash company to pick up your refuse as often as you need them to. So that's the approach we took with this particular development, but we're happy to explore other options if that's the desire.
Thank you. Anything else?
The streets that will go in here, these residential access streets, will those be city streets or will those be private to the, who's in charge of what's allowed to park where and parking on which sides and those things? Is that a city decision?
Yeah, they would be city streets. Yeah, they'll be built to city standards, so, kind of like your regular street, there just might be a little more driveway because there are more units
Right.
out there.
28 feet to
Standard, yeah. And as you have more lots or more houses or more units on the street, then they might get wider, as you go along. Yeah, these streets will be built to city standard.
Anything else? This has been a tough thing for me, because I am probably the biggest proponent of multifamily and commercial development in the city. At least I like to think I am. So, and I also love being able to find some kind of a compromise for a project, but I just can't get there on this one. I sat on the master plan committee in 2016, as some of us, more than one of us did, and I know what we talked about, and trying to squeeze this kind of dense commercial or dense multifamily housing into an area that is currently zoned as industrial concerns me. It concerns me because the minute that we build those family dwellings there, and the person who comes in behind them and wants to build an industrial warehouse on that property to the north, then we're gonna sit on this board and we're gonna hear people come in and say, well, you can't build that in my backyard. We're you know, where my family lives. So I have a really hard time with the rezoning of the property. I think it's a great project. I just don't love it here. And I'm not sure that the density of it is, I don't know that we're ready for it.
I would agree on that. The master plan was more than just 5 years old. I was approached about building a supermarket 20 years ago. And I don't know if it's been marketed or is
would say I don't know that the rezoning itself actually bothers me. The density is where I feel stuck. Like, I have lived in cities, and I lived in an apartment complex where I could walk to the Barnes and Noble, which is like my favorite thing to do. So like, I could just walk to the restaurant, I could just walk, and I liked that sort of multi-use aspect. But Kearney's a town of maybe 12,000 people, and our infrastructure is not built to handle this much in one area. There's not enough access points yet, and it's real nice to think we could do that as access points, but to make a super dense area in hopes that that will come, it seems really risky to me. We still only have one access point off the interstate into our city, which causes its own issues, and that would be so I'm not so much opposed to the location or even the rezoning, but it just seems like we don't have the infrastructure to support this kind of zoning and this kind of density. I think it's where I'm also really, this has been a really hard one for me too.
If not, I would entertain a motion. We don't have a motion, aye.
Not sure. There really should be a motion. There needs to be a decision made that then gets forwarded to the Board of Aldermen, one way or the other.
Okay.
Now, I feel like Kearney needs this. Need that type of housing, that type of people that are first starters. There's a lot of density in that area. I will agree with both of y'all on that. But I really think Kearney needs something in this income area, not the area of that, but in that income of the newer families just starting. So what we're looking at is an RP3 and an RP4?
And CP.
Another one?
CP.
CP?
Yep. There, if you look at, well, I would say if you look towards the back of staff reports. Packet's thick. It's gonna take me a little while.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion.
I wasn't too clear, but I think if you say, if you make a motion to, I'm just gonna say, recommend approval of the rezoning request with concept plan and preliminary plat for Kearney Crossing.
Madam Chair, point of order, is the opposition going to be given an opportunity to,
This is not a public hearing, sir. That was done last meeting.
there's a revised document before you.
Yes, the public hearing was closed.
There will be a Board of Aldermen meeting.
Okay, so I just want to be sure for the record here, there is no public hearing.
There's no public,
on
that
the
was,
revised plan that was submitted, to the planning commission.
correct. You'll be able to speak at the Board of Aldermen meeting. And the public hearing will be open at that time.
Well, we need a motion of some kind, is that right?
Yep.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Kearney Crossing with staff's recommendations on the RP3 and the RP4 and the CP.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? The second will only allow us to vote, so.
All right, then, I second that motion.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
This will move on to the Board of Aldermen meeting on
Next Tuesday,
the 18th,
18th.
January 18th. There will be a public hearing at that time. Thank you.
6:30, same as tonight's meeting.
There be no new business. The next item would be then commission discussion. Do we have any discussion for this evening? No? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good.